Good morning. Thank you for listening to WXOX 97.1 and on the FM dial in Louisville, Kentucky, or streaming at artxfm.com. This is Artist Talk with LVA and the show produced by Louisville Visual Art. I'm your host, Keith Waits. And today I'm happy to have as a first-time guest on the show, Rhonda Goodall is a painter living in Louisville, Kentucky. She is the principal and owner of her own consulting firm, Rhonda Goodall Creative Solutions, which operates out of Goodall Gallery in the heart of the Clifton neighborhood. She received her BS in design from Eastern Kentucky University. Her intuitive approach to art and design naturally ushered her into the forefront of a burgeoning holistic faction of visionaries evolving the way humans inspire and inhabit spaces. And we'll get into that a little bit. The reason why I've asked her to come today is that that's the first time I'm interviewing her, but it's also the first time she is going to participate in Open Studio Weekend, the Open Studio Louisville, excuse me, the initiative from Louisville Visual Art and the Height Institute at the University of Louisville. Hi, Rhonda, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. Great. Yeah, good to see you.
And you're so we're on the radio, but there will be a video of this on our YouTube later, and you are sitting in your gallery. It looks quite nice and with good natural light and colorful paintings on the wall. Let me start with, we'll talk a little bit about your practice and the things you do, but let's start first with what was behind your decision to join Open Studio Weekend for the Open Studio Louisville for the first time?
I used to be a big participant in Louisville Visual Arts. I was on their board for a number of years, and I love what you guys do and stand for. One of the other reasons that I wanted to participate in Open Studio is I haven't really had my gallery or my studio open to the public. It's just been by appointment only since the pandemic. So I thought it would be a nice way to invite people in and see what I'm doing, see what's going on here over in the Crescent Hill, Clifton area. So,
right, you're on one end of the street, and Bob Lockhart is on the other end of the street.
That is right.
And he's not participating. He has, but he's not doing that this year. So I always think it's Stills Avenue, right?
That is correct. I'm on Stills Avenue.
That's one thing I always think about Stills Avenue is you guys are like the anchors for me of Stills Avenue. We should get like other artists, and we could have a whole Stills Avenue of artists. But
I think that we're two of the main ones. I got to know Bob about 20 some years ago. Worked on Bellarmine's library, and he helped participate in selecting the art for the library. So that was fun.
Okay, yeah, he's always a good consultant. He's got a good eye.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about your work. And well, before we move on, we'll just to specify to people that Open Studio Weekend is the 15th and the 22nd of October from 12 to 6 on those Saturdays. And are you doing both of those days?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so Rhonda will be available on both of the Open Studio Louisville Saturdays.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about your work. You know, on your website, the bio actually goes on to talk more about your practice. And I didn't want to use too much of it because I'd like to hear you explain it. But what is it about your practice and what you do that leads into this sort of holistic health and wellness idea? Talk about that a little bit.
Well, I'm also an interior designer. That's been my profession since out of college. And I realized probably back in like the 80s that I had an interest in creating environments that had sort of a soulfulness to them. Now, I didn't always tell my clients that, but I always tried to put some element of that into environments. And that didn't, that was like in the 90s, I ran a design firm that I brought together architects, interior designers, and graphic designers with the intention of designing holistically. And, I think that was something that really spoke to me. And also, that was when I started painting. I started painting in my 40s. And what I found with painting, that it gave me a way to express myself and be creative for me. Whereas I was creative for everyone else, And so that really spoke volumes to me. It really expanded my consciousness and really helped me get in touch with who I truly was. And so that's what I've sort of been true to the art that I create. It's sort of like I paint from my joy. I try to put that on a canvas. A lot of people will tell me that they're like, they will feel my paintings
Mhm.
and that they make them happy. And I'm like, oh, great, mission accomplished. So
So does that, do you think about terms like expressionism, the way you talk, that seems to maybe fit, but do you think that fits the kind of paintings you do?
well, I think that I've sort of evolved through different, well, it's funny, it depends on my mood because people can come in the gallery and my gallery is primarily my artwork. I have one other artist in here because I'm not open on a regular basis. I really haven't uh, had a lot of different artists in here. That wouldn't be fair to them.
Mhm.
But people will come in and they'll be like, these are all your paintings because there's such a variety of styles. And I think that when I first started to paint, I learned photorealism and I learned and mastered it. And I remember Mary Louise Schroet, she was such
Right.
an amazing woman. And I started to torture her after I learned photorealism. I wanted to learn let's paint from life. Let's paint. Well, let's do glazing. She goes, Rhonda, you got to get out there, girl. And Bob Lockhart was a major influence on me as well. I asked him, should I go back to school? And I was expecting him to say, of course. And he said, no, you need to go pick people that you want to learn from and make sure they're better than you. And I was like, okay. So I have pushed myself to learn from a lot of different people, Wolf Kahn and Aaron Schickler, and just I've gone all over to, really figure out what did I like to paint. I love doing portraits, but that's a totally different mindset.
Mhm.
During the pandemic, I was so isolated because I live above my studio. I offered to do porch portraits out on the front porch.
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, anybody that, and I thought, well, I'll do 19 for the COVID-19 and then we'll open up and have an exhibit. And, that didn't happen for another year. But I ended up doing 34 porch portraits
Wow.
and I enjoyed each and every one of them. They were like so fun and connecting. But it depends on the mood I'm in. I will go in and do sort of abstract landscapes. And then sometimes I'll plein air. I love to go to my favorite park out past Eastwood. It's Long Run Park,
Mhm.
and set up and paint uh, a natural scene, plein air. And they're more realistic. And but then I don't know. I I allow that creativity to flow from me and through me, and sometimes I'm not like in maybe that creative of a space to where it flows, and then I'll go more towards realism because I want to paint. It's like I always am wanting to create, and so I don't know. It's an evolving process that I've allowed to flow through me.
Well, it's interesting. I've talked to several artists who do different kinds of things, and I think there is sort of a cliche about an artist does a certain kind of work and gets known for that. But I think the reality is that most artists are restless enough, and it sounds like that's what your thing is. You don't want to stop. So if your mood doesn't support a certain approach, you can switch to a different direction. Um, but to tie it to your emotional states kind of is interesting.
Yeah.
And when I read through some of the statement too, you talk about I like this one phrase in your statement about your paintings are a concise expression of natural systems and the complex nuance of human emotion, which is both about emotion, but also almost sounds like a scientific understanding of them. There's a scientific underpinning there. Is that true, or am I reading too much
That
into that
is
statement?
true. That is true. I mean, when I tell people, I've like, I for about a year or so, I would put myself to sleep listening to videos of Einstein and quantum physics and all kinds of things. They're like, really? I'm like, yeah, I'm fascinated with it. You know, it's like, maybe it doesn't, it's not, I'm not a scientist, but you know, everything like science and nature and all that, it's so integrated. And I think that that's what fascinates me. And it's like, it's fascinating me with design, and it fascinates me with how we express ourselves. I mean, I have been also, like, I've had a vision of designing a creative center that would have a holistic approach, because I try to encourage everybody to have some sort of form of creative expression. It's where we
Mhm.
find our freedom of
Mhm.
ourselves. And I've had some creative workshops here in the gallery, and a lot of people that I talk to, they're like, "Oh, I'm not an artist." Well, come visit me and I'll show you that you can have fun with it. It doesn't have to be intimidating. So that's that freedom that I speak of.
Well, I think when people say I'm not an artist, I think it always strikes me as they're sort of seeing it as a role, like a certain sort of, um, it's like saying I'm not a doctor or a lawyer because I haven't done all that education or whatever, like whatever. But to think that everybody has the ability and maybe the need to be creative, which I think is what you're kind of talking about.
Yeah.
So besides besides that is communicated in so many of your paintings, what other sorts of things do you do to try, and talking to me about it here, but what else do you do to try to communicate that? Have you done teaching and workshops with these kinds of ideas?
I have done workshops. That's been sort of my mission,
Mhm.
um, or sort of my vision for a number of years. But I had like, I opened the gallery about 20 years ago, and I had
Mhm.
a number of artists, and but I started to do projects for one of the banks, and then they asked me to do art consulting. I did design projects for them, but they also knew me as an artist. And the first project they asked me to do was on Park Avenue. Like, go figure. And I was like, you bet, I can do it. And it was really great because I got to use a lot of Louisville artists in that project. And it really sort of, I cut my teeth on, okay, I guess I'm an art consultant, even though, like, I had been doing that with all my interior projects, like the Bellman Library, any project I worked on, a law firm, I always put an emphasis on art in the environments. And I mean, the next project I did for them was a Fairmont Hotel in Pittsburgh. And I used all Pittsburgh artists, and then it took off and I started traveling. So that's why I really haven't had the gallery open. And it's been sort of a balance for me, because I was like, well, it's been the way I've been able to make a living uh, and supporting so many artists across the country. And the unfortunate part of making that commitment, none of my art, because I'm the art consultant, it's a conflict of interest.
Right.
So none of my art went in any of these projects. It was crazy, but I was able to. So, but I've always had this, like, oh, when I stop traveling, I'm going to launch these creative workshops. And I really sort of wound off of that, and really had plans around 2020. And then, things, shifted for all of us. And so I've done it a little bit of I've offered some workshops, and I've just let it come to me and evolve. And I've been fortunate to have, like last year, I had a whole family that asked to do a workshop
Hmm.
after Thanksgiving. I had grandparents, parents, and kids. And that was like so much fun. And so that's where my focus is, that I still want to do that. I want the gallery not to be so much a gallery, but a community space, a creative community space. And that's what I'm working towards. So
That's such a lovely idea, like, because for Thanksgiving, the dilemma for families is like, once you've done the meal, what do you do the whole rest of the weekend? And, and it's like, what a great idea to have that sort of activity on Saturday, I guess, or whatever, Friday or
yes,
Saturday afterwards.
yes,
That's a
yes.
great idea.
Yeah,
But you can only
yeah.
do that for one family a year, so. I guess.
No, I tried to
But-
have my family in here for Thanksgiving several years ago. It's like, we could do a whole reenactment. But they were like, because they know I'm pretty healthy eater, vegetarian. I was like, everybody can bring food. We don't have to have tofu turkey or anything like that. But I think I put them over the edge with, I said, well, I know you can either come dressed as a pilgrim or an Indian. And the next year, one of my sisters broke the news to me. Nobody wanted to come to my place for Thanksgiving. Okay, you don't have to dress up, I promise. I won't make you paint. No, they weren't coming. But it was really wonderful to have this family in last year. And because I'd always thought that would be wonderful, wouldn't it?
Mhm.
And they had a ball. They said it was their favorite event of all the events that the main person had put together. So I was tickled with that. So.
Well, cool. That's wonderful.
So I'm optimistic about bringing that forward and making it happen. So.
Well, let me ask you a question. Since you've been around a while in Louisville and been able to, so you've been a witness to seeing like the art scene change. What would be your take on the current state of affairs for visual arts? Well, we'll just keep it to visual arts. I don't want to try and task you too much. What do you think is the state of affairs right now? The visual arts in Louisville.
I think we're trying to get our feet back on the ground. I mean, I think that we had. I've watched it evolve with the New Lou area, and now where you all are in Portland, and the Crescent Hill area, Bardstown Road, and I think that I mean, we should have the trolley hops and really connecting everything. Melwood Art Center. We've got all the pieces and parts, and I think that now moving forward, how we put it back out into the community is really important. So
Is there so you think that's what's missing is sort of a unification, sort of a threads running to everybody together?
Yeah. It is. It's about community.
Yeah.
It really is. So, we just gotten separated, and I think it's important that we bring it all back together.
And that really seems to fit what you're talking about, your ideas and your aesthetic about your work. It's very consistent with that expression, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I mean, I was on Bingham Fellows back in the 90s, and we studied world-class arts in Louisville. So we studied all aspects of art, but I remember at that time, the visual arts was the weakest, and we've grown exponentially with our visual arts in Louisville. So I think that we've done a really great job, but it's just like how we move forward is really important.
Well, and I, from my perspective, and I spent the 90s in Indiana, mostly in Bloomington. I came back in 2005, but I remember working for John Begley at LVAA at the Water Tower for a couple of years, and it seems like that was the height of that sort of sense of community and that connection of relationships. And then it seems like you're right. Like I don't know why I was gone. I wasn't witness to it, but when I came back, I did see all those changes that had happened. And LVA was at a low point coming into the 2000s, and we're on the way up again. I think we have been for a while. So yeah, that's interesting. That makes sense to me what you're saying.
Yeah. So I'm really hopeful. I'm about, but I really do think it's about connection and community and really sort of driving that home.
So in just the last couple of minutes here, so what should people expect when they come to visit you? What's the experience going to be like, do you think?
Fun. That was what my father used to. I had 8 brothers and sisters, and my dad, when he took us on trips, he came up with the password was fun. So we use it in our family all the time. What's the password? Fun.
Was he a Beach Boys fan?
Was he a Beach Boys fan? I don't know.
Wow.
Probably. He was before the Beach Boys, but
Because I immediately hear that song in my head.
Oh yeah. But I mean, I got my whole I used to be regarded the artist of the family, and I ended up getting all my family to paint when I started painting. Wow. And that's what's inspired me to do these creative workshops because I grew up going, being you're the artist. And I was like, well, I think everybody is, but, so I get them to paint and I've watched them, just blossom. I have two family members now that are potters and, so it's just that inspiration. We're all here to touch, move, and inspire others. It's just what we're here to do.
Well, and I think you say that, and I think and we do it whether we know it or not. So it's better to have an intention behind it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, well, that sounds lovely.
Yeah.
Well, Rhonda,
hopefully
thank you.
that will inspire people. That's
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining me today. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you, and you're definitely on my list of people I'm coming to see.
Okay, cool. Sounds
But
good.
Rhonda Goodall, who at Goodall Gallery on Stills Avenue in Clifton, will be participating in Open Studio Weekend, October 15th and October 22nd. I don't know why April sprung in on you there.
It's my birthday month.
Oh, is it? We'll see where you
Maybe that is.
through the
connecting.
ether. You were sending me that. Okay. Then see, so your stuff is very powerful. Yeah. It even came through the Zoom. So but be sure, and you can find out everything you need to know about participating in Open Studio Weekend by going to louisvillevisualart.org/Open Studio Louisville. And I keep saying weekend too. Man, my boss is going to be so unhappy about that. Anyway, it is 2 Saturdays. There are 2 days, but they're a week apart. So, all right. Well, thank you so much, Rhonda.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks. Have a great day.
You too.
Okay. Bye.